Hello and welcome to another episode of It Could Have Been a Classic. And my God, I don't know where to start with this. Oh, right. Oh, right. You're going to have to bear with me on this one. You really are. Because I'm watching it nearly 40 odd years later and I still can't get my head around it. 1976 is ITV children's programs Children of the Stones. My God, I don't know where to start with this. Right, I'm going to go into why this series, even now, still freaks me out quite a lot. I have watched it recently this week and I've popped back into a couple of episodes. And even though it's sort of explained on Wikipedia, watching it, you get a different experience. So just bear with me on this. Right, yeah, this has not been an easy one to cover. It is insane, and it's just it is a masterpiece. Is this right? Let's go to Wikipedia, where I've tried to simplify it, and let's go. Right, Children of Stones is a British fantasy drama serial for children produced by HTV in 1976 and broadcast on the United Kingdom's ITV network in January and February 1977. The series was chosen by Graham Scott with Patrick Drumgoole as executive producer. We're not interested in all that. It's written by Jeremy Burnham, who did write the sequel book to this, which I'm sort of interested in, but luckily I found the information of the book, so I don't have to buy it now. Right. The series today is considered a landmark in quality children's drama, really. It's a more adult drama, and has been called the scariest program ever made for kids. Right, let's go. So, we used to get this on a Sunday, right? At 4:30, because they were like ITV used to show like an adventure serial every Sunday for kids. My parents were at pub, I were at the house by myself, and I used to watch this, and I was terrified. You know, and you know, even now, right? Let me read this to you. Overview: the series follows the adventures of astrophysicist Adam Brake and his teenage son Matthew after they arrive in the village of Mulberry, which is built in the midst of a megalithic stone circle. Filmed at Avebury, Wiltshire, during the hot summer of '76, with interior scenes filmed at HTV Bristol Studios. It has sinister, discontent, wailing voices heightening the tension in the incidental music, which was composed by Sidney Sager, who used the Ambrosian singers to chant in accordance with megalithic rituals. Right. Yeah, I'm going to go into this in a second. Let's get straight into it. There's 7 episodes: Into the Circle of Fear, Serpent in the Circle, Narrowing Circle, Charm Circle, Square in the Circle, and I'm going to say it full circle. Right, so let's go down. The series, just about when it was repeated. Plot outline. The village within the stone circle exists in a time rift in which the same actions are played out with minor variations over and over again. The end result being that the power of the circle will eventually be released to the outside world. Whenever this is faltered, however, the time circle resets and the events attempt again to unfold. However, since time is passing in the outside world in a normal way, time within the circle must also progress in matching the time period of the real world, while still attempting to play out the events within. The 4 circles of the time circle are clearly described in the Circle of Stones, right? The original circle was built during the megalithic era by pagan folk led by Druid priests. The village priest then witnessed the formation of a supernova and somehow deduced that a black hole had formed shortly afterwards using a variety of psychic powers mixed with folk magic. The priest was able to harness the power of the stones, which are natural magnets, and focus negative energy via a beam of light through the center of the circle towards the black hole. This energy, however, was drawn from the minds of the inhabitants within the circle, taking their anger and fear to the black hole and turning them into docile but happy creatures, hence the happy day under the control of the Druid priest. When a pair of travellers entered the village, the Druid priest attempted to brainwash them as well through the beam of light. The black hole, the traveller outwitted the priest, however, and tricked him into thinking they had been brainwashed when the beam of light had not yet appeared. When the two travellers entered the circle of those who had already been taken in by the priest, the circle of control was broken. The beam of light appeared much to the priest's horror, destroying his altar and turning the inhabitants of the circle the inhabitants of the circle to stone. The two travellers barely managed to escape the same fate and survived by hiding in a rock cave towards the edge of the stone circle known as Sanctuary. The events of the original cycle were recorded in a painting which eventually made its way to the key point of another cycle of the time circle. Right. The barber surgeon was an inhabitant of the village of Mulberry, which had been built on the site of the stone circle. The events of the first cycle circle began to unfold again in Mulberry. The barber surgeon sees what's taking place, protected himself by the use of an amulet. The amulet was palm sides and inscribed with a winged serpent. The barber surgeon presented a threat to whoever restarted the events of the first circle and was crushed under a falling sarsen stone, also engraved with a serpent-like amulet. The barber surgeon carried the amulet, was crushed along with the barber surgeon. However, his bones were later removed and the stone that killed him was re-erected within the circle. Whoever caused the barber surgeon to die did not succeed, and the time circle again reset itself into the modern age. Guy the Poacher's life and death activities are marked similar to those of the barber surgeon, suggest a link between the two characters. Right, I mean, bloody hell, right? The time circle took another loop in the 70s when astronomer Raphael Hendrick uncovered an ancient dog Latin text about the Druid priest who saw that a supernova exploded in another part of the galaxy, and they were all going to do all that with a black hole energy. Hendrick discovered made him famous, and he further learned that the supernova is now a black hole in the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear. Hendrick then travelled to Mulberry to the site of Stone Circle and through means left unexplained, learned how to harness the negative energy of the village into the beam of light towards the black hole through complex calculations. He determined exactly when he could form the energy beam and began brainwashing the villagers into what he called the happy ones. The one challenge is posed by a poacher named Guy, but Guy suffers a mysterious death in the same location as the barber surgeon had died on the other event. There's 4 events, right? It is also apparently replaced by a fallen stone carved with a serpent, so that repeated itself. The body had vanished. Guy is killed by a piece of broken amulet found within those pieces, matching the exact gaps in the broken amulet of the barber surgeon. With nothing to stop Hendrick, one by one, the villagers are brainwashed by a beam of light. Professor Brake's son, Matthew, is apparently psychic and has come across a painting that depicts the scene of the first circle. By the time Hendrick seeks to brainwash Brake and his son, both have worked out that Mulberry is replaying events of the first circle, the first time wave, an attempt to find a way to escape. In the final episode, Professor Brake and Matthew set Hendrick timekeeping system ahead 5 minutes because he's got these atomic clocks all over his mansion. This like Magus, this guy who's manipulating events, the alter his clocks. Ahead by 5 minutes, tricking Hendrick to think they're being brainwashed by the energy beam. When they enter the circle of happy ones, the power is broken. Hendrick is exposed to the beam of light and is metamorphed into an image of the ancient Druid priest, while his butler Link covers his eyes for protection. The villagers are then turned to stone when they look at the beam of light from the Hendrick house. Professor Brake and Matthew attempt to save their friends Margaret and her daughter Sandra, but they both ignore the warnings not to look back at the light and meet the same fate as the other villagers. The professor and his son escapes to the sanctuary just as the ancient travellers did when Brake and Matthew awake the next morning. The village has changed back to normal with only minor variations. There is no sign that Hendrik and his plans ever existed. Margaret, Sandra, and Brake's housekeeper were all victims of the Stone Circle's power the previous evening and now living the normal lives again. So the timeline's changed. Even the poacher dies alive and living in the sanctuary, but he gives no indication that he knows Professor Brake or Matthew. Matthew wonders if the time circle has reset and if the events they've recently witnessed will happen again. Professor Brake jokingly asks Matthew if he would like to go back to the village and find out, but Matthew asks him to drive away and to only stop somewhere for something to eat. But this is where the twist comes in. So Joshua Litton, who's behind all this, right? He's like the villain of the series. In the final scenes of the series, shortly after Professor Brett and Matthew depart the village of Millbury, from the village, a well-dressed man in an expensive motor car drives into Millbury. He looks identical to Raphael Hendrick. The man drives to Hendrick's old house where he meets Link, the former butler, in the last round of the circle, who now has a moustache and looks considerably younger. The gentleman introduces himself as Sir Joshua Litton, a former professor at the University of Cambridge, and explains that he's come to Mulberry from London. He comments on what a nice place Mulberry will be to retire, and says he will be very happy there. Right. This is insane, this series, right? And there's quite a bit to get through, but let's go back here. Right. Children of the Stones. When I started watching this, I was a kid, but I remember parents used to go out on Sunday afternoon, so I was in the house, and I used to watch this. Used to come on ITV, and the music just freaked me out. It just freaked me out. They had all this like chanting and all this like druid sort of music and that. And it terrified me, and especially with the Stones, and how they set the camera angles up. So basically, you've got Blake, right? Gareth Thomas, he's in this, and I've got to give him that. He went in Star Maidens, Blake Seven. I've given him that. He's done some excellent stuff as Gareth Thomas. So they turn up in this village, and there's weird things going on now. And this is when I'm going into layman's terms. There's weird things going on, like in the 7 episodes. Suddenly, everybody's personality's changing, and there's things awry up at the manor with this like insane professor dude, and Blake's son, the scientist, the physicist, he's gone there to investigate something, and there's a woman studying the stones, and a picture turns up from like thousands of years ago, people dancing around this circle, and this beam of energy firing out of the sky, out of the ground, and they're worshipping it. And then obviously something goes wrong. It's like every time this event sort of happens, like somebody turns up to disrupt the event, like breaks the power of the circle. And then the circle is constantly, it seems to me that the circle is resetting itself, even though it's sort of going like parallel. It's like small time bubbles within the main timeline, but separate. It's like that's the timeline, then you go in like that. And you go, and then it's like that, and the timeline's going on. It's going on. I mean, it could be happening now. It's like the same event. Maybe all 4 events are being repeated. You don't really know. But there's like, when you're watching this, you're coming out with all these insane theories. Like, no, but that don't make sense. Then they mention about a visitor coming from the stars, and there's and then suddenly you're taken off track with that. I mean, this program is genius. Right, I'm 50. I'm 50 now, and I'm watching this, and even now, I watched it with my friend who I consider very intelligent, and even he was, because I watched it with him, and we were coming up with theories by taking what we were watching, trying to figure it out, and Wikipedia is not fully explaining what's going on, but it's like a time loop. Basically, this guy, turns up. He lives in the manor. They always seem to live in manor villains, don't they? He's got a butler called Link, and he's like some kind of. He's got computers in this abandoned church. in the village, because the village is built around this big, powerful circle of stones. And he wants to channel all the negative energy, and I think he wants to take over the world, basically using the mystical power of the stone circle to how do you say, like, take all our negativity and turn us all into like happy people. But it seems that the power of the stones is it's like other forces seem to be at work, because it seems that it's resetting itself to get this energy out all the time with different players. But it's going on now. There's some crazy shit going on in this program, right? I mean, there's one where they drive into the village and they think they knock a woman down, and it's not. She's a stone. She's a woman, and then she's a stone. And some of the stones move, and the sun's psyche touches the stones. He sees visions and all this. I mean, there's a lot going on in this, and it's just sheer genius. Now, there is quite a terrifying factor of this. This is no wonder we're all fucking fucked today, because, I mean, watching this at 9-year-old, I mean, this was a kids' program, and, I've watched it a couple of times, and it's even now, I can't get the full SP on this thing. Yeah, I think I know the basic, but there's so much in there that you still add to it, because, like, there's a lot, even though with the thing about the time loop and the events, and Wikipedia does sort of simplify quite a lot of it, but there's still other things about people being turned to stone and people being brainwashed and people running about. The thing about the serpent, it seems that the serpent seems to be some kind of protection if you've got an amulet. There's a thing at the end of the circle called sanctuary, that if you get there, the power of the circle does not affect you. Now, it gets into like the old Sodom and Gomorrah thing, really, because when like this like insane like Lord at Manor guy, Litchfield or whatever he's called, when he's going to unleash the energy, because he sits in a stone throne and the table's right in the center of the circle and the energy goes out, he turns round in his chair and the bright light, which is going into space, sort of takes all your emotions away, brainwashes you. But the son and the father is going to turn them, because they need 52 people to complete the circle. Now, the scenes in this, right, where like, you imagine that you're in your house and there's 50 people all stood in a circle outside your house chanting at middle of the night. You're going to freak out. This thing delivers that sense of paranoia and fear beautifully. It really does. It gets you. I'm at my age, even now, watching this on Monday. It just really, you're still trying to get your head around it. Now, Children of the Stones is a classic. And I'm not even going to just, it could have been a classic. It way shoots past that. And I felt I had to do this. Now, like the Stones and that, you get this really creepy feeling about them. And that this chanting sort of music's in the background all the time. And you constantly get this sense of, I mean, if you lived in this place, something is not right. You know what I mean? And it's how the villagers get turned into, and it's run by this guy. But it seems like my theories is like when people come and disrupt this event, the energy seems to be trapped within the time sort of bubble, within that time space. And so it resets itself because the energy's got to come out somehow. So really, it's like people, it's like a safeguard, to keep this energy. Because if this energy was unleashed, you see, this is another question: would it take over the world? Would everyone suddenly become happy people? I mean, there's a lot you don't get answered in this, and you have to, I suppose, put your own sort of stuff together. Now, I'm trying my best to get around this one. I really am, because I've watched it recently, and it has totally blown my mind. It is highly intelligent. It's a masterpiece of writing, is this, and they said it's the most intelligent kids program. I'm sorry, but I put this in the adult category as well. This was made in '76, and they're coming up with stuff like this back then. They wouldn't make this today. They just would not dare make this today, But there is like you see, when they stop, like they're all outside, like final episode, they're all outside chanting, and they're in house, and they're all just stood outside holding hands, like chanting all this like stuff, and it's dark, and he's getting ready for this certain time when this energy beam comes out of ground and goes to this star. And this all this like human emotion, this energy, it goes into a black hole, but it never really explains why, So you have to sort of like work that out. It probably does, and that's you'd have to probably go over it again to figure it out. But it's something to do with this energy transfer. But does he want to take over the world? Because this has happened 4 times, and it's fucked up every time it's happened. It's not quite got out. So the stones reset it all. And other people's stones, are they the ancient people all turned into stone? They're all somehow in there. Are the villagers? Is it them? I mean, you don't know. Is there a connection to it all? It seems like where you think the serpent is like the evil entity. It seems that you've got the serpent charm, it protects you. So that seems to be like some kind of shield, and that's a serpent. Because in the picture, there's this picture that's like instrumental, and you do see a serpent, but maybe that's escaping and protecting. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to let you decide on it. Luckily, the whole series is on YouTube, and I do recommend, if you've never seen this, I'd sit down and watch it, because you'll sit there and just be blown away. This is from the writing of when Doctor Who was out in the 70s, the best of Doctor Who, highly intelligent stories and writing. And this is beautiful. There's no big budget, even the sets. I don't know, ITV dramas back in the 70s where the sets were pretty cool. Something about the house to live in them. There's something there, and they sort of did that so well. There's no special effects for this. The only thing is the beam of light. It's very character driven, and you will recognize quite a lot of actors that are quite famous now in this. So, could children to stones? Well, I'm not going to just say it just yet. There is a book, Return to the Stones, and it's got something to do with Babylonian Sumerian fish gods. Don't ask. Where one is there, this alien godlike is there, and it's trying to activate the stones. But even when the father and son who were now grown up, the father lives there now, who stops all this, and they stop this entity or whatever from harnessing the power of the stones to do whatever. And this is in the second book, Return to the Stones. But when they stop that, it happens again. It seems the stones are resetting themselves again. So it opens it up for a third sort of sequel. But the writing to this is just a masterpiece of science fiction. You can perceive this how you want. Is this a classic? Oh, fuck yeah. This could have been a classic. Yeah, it's established. A lot of people won't know about this. It's probably more my generation. But if you watch my could have been a classic series, and you're a lot younger than me, try this out, because they won't make this shit anymore. I'll tell you that now. What, you think they make this for kids today or adults? It'd freak people out, because it's just genius. All of it is the writing, the acting, all of it is 100% on this. So, I mean, I've tried to, it's not been an easy one to cover, because, even when you're watching Children of the Stones, you still putting your own sort of thing together of what is going on. I know the basics, it's time loop, and it's moving like I said, it seems to be like that, moving along like that, but it's moving with our reality. But there's still questions that, or is that what they want you to do? Is the people trapped inside the stones from thousands of years ago? Are the villagers them people, and they've got no memory, they've just been trapped? But it seems that the time thing is sort of moving along at the side of our reality, because when they go into the time bubble, you can't get out, because when they try to leave, the stone blocks the path. So that makes it sort of interesting. There's a lot more going on than what we've just seen. To do a sequel to this today, I don't know. I think there might have been better making a sequel back then. I'd say, I'd like to see Children Return to the Stones made, but they'd fuck it up today. I think a sequel to this would have probably been better back in the day. But the second book, I read the reviews. It's not as good as obviously the Children of the Stones, but the second book, it sort of holds up quite well apparently to a lot of people. So could Children of the Stones could it have been a classic? If you've never seen it, I recommend it. Yeah, it's a fucking classic. Children of the Stones is awesome. Not been an easy one, but I thought I had to get this done. And let me know your thoughts. But guys, it's on YouTube, and that's my review of Could Have Been a Classic, Children of the Stones, and I will see you on the next video. And don't forget, I will be on live tomorrow at 4 p.m. UK time, and the Doctor Who trailer is being released tomorrow. So guys, look after yourself, stay safe, and have a lovely Saturday night in.